Hello everyone. For this activity, you'll be working with Illustrator. You'll be using the different selection tools, and you'll be working with a few other additional tools, including color pickers and some things that might seem more like a refresher to you, but I feel that the MSI training might not give you enough opportunity to actually work with these tools. So I think this will help you to kind of perfect and better understand how the tools in Illustrator work. So once you have opened up the selection tutorial, what we need to do first is make sure we have Essentials Classic, because a lot of the things that this asks for are easiest to find through the Classic workspace. So if we go to Window, and then go down to Workspace, and then Essentials Classic, what you should see is an options bar at the top. And on the right, you will see the most commonly used essential panels in Illustrator. So now let's kind of go through each of these steps in this tutorial so that you can see how everything works, just in case you don't already understand the ins and outs of these tools. And so I'm going to do each of these with you, and if you, if you're working along with this video, make sure you pause so you don't miss anything, because there are a lot of little details that you'll need to take care of, and different keyboard combinations, all kinds of things like that as we move forward into some of the other lessons. So the first thing that we need to do is use the selection tool, the object selection tool, which is this black arrow, and we need to select the large circle and all the orange circles. So to do that, we need to click on anything that basically has the number 1 here. We need to hold down Shift and select all of the orange dots, and I'm just going to say do the ones that have the 1s in them. If they have a 1, go ahead and select those. But if you hold down Shift while you click, that will add to your selection. Now, we need to change the color to these numbers here, and it's a CMYK color. So to do that, you have to hold down the Shift and click on the little drop down thing. I need to reselect my circles really quick. Sorry, I lost that in my little pause there. Alright, so if we go up to here and click on that, then you should see your numbers, and what we need to type in is 0 for the C, 67 for the M, 96 for the Y, and for the K we want 0. And you'll get this kind of tangerine orange. Alright, if you noticed, I kind of changed the directions up a little bit in here because for some reason the other thing was affecting my CMYK choices. I am going to have a slightly different version in the next 2 seconds by the magic of being able to pause my recording. So just hang tight for a sec. Okay, so this should be a little easier to read. So number 2, the next step that we are going to do is use the direct select tool, and we're going to be clicking on anchor points. The direct select tool is this white arrow here, and what that allows you to do is click on anchor points in a path. And what an anchor point is one of these things. It helps define the actual shape, and it also helps define curves, or what's called Bezier curves in Illustrator or a graphics software. So anyways, we want to use this to click on this little blue dot at the top, and it says drag it down to reveal the ice cream scoop. So if we drag it down a little bit, you'll see, oh, voila, there's an ice cream scoop below. I didn't make this, I promise. Okay, so number 3, use the magic wand to select the lime green circle. So what the magic wand does, if you go down to number 3 here, what we're going to be doing is clicking that, and watch what happens. Poof. basically all of the things that have that same green color are selected. So it allows you to select all of them at the same time. We use the lime green circles, or we use the magic wand with lime green circles, but what it wants us to do is give it a lime green gradient, and what it's talking about is down here, this lime green, and the way we will do that is using this eyedropper tool. So if you click on the eyedropper and then go down to the lime down here and just click on it, wow, there you go. It should go ahead and give you that radial gradient on all of those points. So it's a nice way to quickly copy a style from something else to other paths. So we have that, and the next thing that we want to do for number 4 is I'm going to move over. I'm using the space bar a little bit, and I can actually zoom out. I need to just hide this so I can see what I'm doing. Alright, so the next thing it has us using is a lasso tool, and the lasso tool is right here. And just like in Photoshop, when you're selecting things, you literally draw your selection, and it wants us to select all the planets and only the black and pink circles surrounding the planets. So if I start to draw, now it doesn't have to be perfect. If for some reason you accidentally get a little extra of something, don't fret, it'll be fine. So I'm just going to go around this and then back up to here, and poof, all of those are selected. And what it wants us to do next is apply a drop shadow. So I showed you guys this in the typography activity if you did it in Illustrator, but I'll show you again. If you go into Effect and then Stylize, make sure it's the Illustrator Effect version of Stylize, not this one, but this one right here. Go down to Drop Shadow, and it says click the preview button. It's already clicked. We need to set the opacity to 88%. We need to set the blur to 0.15 inches. And it says change the color to 100, 100, 0, and 50. And that's another thing I'm going to fix in a second, so don't be freaked out by the pause. But to change the color, we got to click on that. And we're going to the CMYK here. So we're going to go 100. We're going to go 100 for M, 0 for Y, and 50 for K. And it should give us kind of a bluish tone, which you can kind of see down there. So when I click OK, poof, there it is. Alright, I'm pausing for a second. Sit tight. Okay, again, my apologies. That whole directions thing I had to copy from something else. I wanted to have it in the same file so you don't have to download a bunch of stuff. So anyways, we've done the drop shadow for number 4. Number 5, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using the selection tool, and then we're going to use the select similar options button that's going to be up at the top here. So all we need to do is find number 5 here, click on that black dot, and this is where it gets tricky because you need to know where to click. It doesn't really flat out say it, but it's this right here. If you hover over, it says select similar objects, and when you click on that caret to the right of it, we want to choose by fill color. So if you go to fill color here, then it will select everything that has that same fill color. It could have a different stroke, but it's definitely going to have that fill color. So we got that. And then what we need to do is choose Radial Gradient 1 from the Swatches panel. So the Swatches panel is up in here. And if you hover over these, you get the tooltips and everything that say what they are. And if you go to this one, it says Radial Gradient 1. And when you click it, poof, you get a radial gradient that's a gray to black. So once you've done that, then we are on to the to number 6, where you're going to choose the use the regular selection tool here. Click on that large green circle, and it wants us to use the warp tool. And the warp tool is located underneath the variable width tool thing. And one thing I want you guys to do is hold down your mouse on that, but click this little button here, because that will pop this out as a little panel, and it'll give you access to the things we'll need for the next few tasks. So we're going to use the warp tool first, which is this right here. And I just want you to try it out here, see what happens when you click and drag near an anchor point. What it essentially is doing is it allows you to kind of warp the shape a little bit. And so if you do that once, we want to do that on 3 different anchor points. So if you kind of try that out, you can kind of like make everything a little bit of a blob there. The next thing we want to do is try the rest of these. And so we're going to use the shapes that we haven't touched yet, like these red ones up here. And you can use twirl on that and see what happens. And if you use it on multiple points, you can see it kind of goes in whatever direction. Like if I'm on the right side, it's going to twirl more clockwise, whereas if I'm on the left side, it's going to go counterclockwise. You can go the, I believe this is called the pinch, or pucker, sorry. So I got to choose another tool first, choose another circle first, and then I'm going to click on pucker, and you can see it kind of just smushes things in. It's like kind of, you pinch it in. I've always called it pinch and punch, but this is called pucker and bloat. So bloat does what you'd think. It bloats things and makes it fatter. And then the next one I believe is called scallop. Yeah, and what that does is it kind of spikes things out. It's very similar to the next one, which I'll use this for that right there. The wrinkle tool, if I click on that, you can kind of see what the wrinkle tool does. So there's scallop. Oh wait, I skipped one. Crystallize. That was the one I was thinking. So if I do crystallize, you can see crystallize is very similar to scallop. And let me do that over here, I guess, and just show you. It's a little bit more even. So that's the difference there. So once you've finished all these instructions, then we're on to the next part. And to get over there, you can just use your space bar. If you hold it down, you get the hand, and you can drag over. And you can see we have another artboard over here. And for this, what we are going to do is use the Add Anchor Point tool. So we need to select the yellow circle first, and we're going to add an anchor point by holding down the mouse here and going Add Anchor Point. And we want to add an anchor point on the edge of the yellow circle near the red dots. And so we already have 4 anchor points that define the circle. But if we put one here, one here, one here, and one here to follow those directions. Now if we use the direct select tool, and it says double click on each of the new anchor points. So if I double click on that one, it'll allow me to select that one by itself, and I want to drag it towards the center of the circle. So we're going to drag it to about there. Probably doesn't need to be exact center. Do that for the next one. And then do that for that one. And then it says, once you've done that, select the original anchor points of the circle with the direct select tool. So we're doing that. And we're going to be using the convert to corner button on the options panel, which is this right here. Convert selected anchor points to corner. So this allows you to take a curve and make it pointy. And you get that. You get that. You get that. And you get that. And here's a little issue I ran into here. You can see because I made it so close, it doesn't quite come out the way it's supposed to, but that's a little bit better. And you can see that's what we're aiming for, is creating these things. And if you want it exactly like that, you just literally can add a stroke to it because that's what's done in those. And that's it for those first two parts. This last part, I'm going to show you a few things, but this is really just kind of a bonus. So I'll show you how you can use a few different tools to accomplish this. But this is more if you get done with the other parts of this and you want to try something else. So I'll be right back in just a second with that. Okay, so the things that you would need to use to recreate this ice cream cone are the shape tools, which I'll pop out over here. And I encourage you to just kind of go through and find whatever these the different tools are that you'll need to do this. Let's see, what else do we need? We're going to need to use the Pathfinder tools. So if you go to Window and then locate Pathfinder, and stick that down there. We know we're going to need that. Convert anchor point buttons. We'll need that once we're using the direct selection tool and we click on some of those things. Need the warp. We need shape tools we've learned so far. And so hopefully you've understood some of those. If not, you are right now going to learn about those things. So one thing is, if you look at the little star things, they'll look really familiar because that's what we just created. So you learned how to do that using simply a ellipse. I should have just grabbed it from there. And, whoops, you just pull that out, and then you would add your anchor points using the Add Anchor Point tool on the pen. And you would add those to the corners, and then you would use the direct select tool to pull those anchors closer to the middle here, and then the trick is to convert the corners. So remember, you just click on each one of those corners and it will convert a curve to a corner. So each anchor on the edge then becomes more like one of those little star things. And I could have done it better, but I didn't. Of course, if you want to make exactly like this picture, you'd want to make this white with no strokes. So I just change that to white and no stroke. The problem is we're not going to be able to see it because there's no background yet. Of course, for a background, just keep in mind in Illustrator, you do not have the ability to change the color of the artboards because there's really nothing there. It's just showing you, just defining a space that you're working in. So to create your background, you literally want to draw a rectangle, and you can choose the fill, which we know is going to be brown, probably closest to that brown. And then you would have some other things that you could use you may or may not know about, which I'm not going to bother with. I just wanted to show you how you define a background. But if you know how to do it, you can go ahead and create the rays. It's basically going to be a matter of using perhaps a rectangle and stretching it out, but then bringing the anchor points closer together and apart, and then you would rotate, you'd make copies of that and rotate it, and the color would need to be something a little lighter, and you wouldn't want to stroke either. And then later on you do some other stuff where you could make that fade out. To create the ice cream cone, again, we can use polygon tool, which if you go to the polygon tool up here and then press the down arrow on your keyboard until you get to triangle, which is the absolute smallest you could do, and that's already kind of matching the color of the ice cream cone. But if I pull this down, one of the beautiful things in Photoshop is that you can actually convert your corners just like that. It has a built-in knob in there for that. And so we got the beginnings of a cone. You can also use to create your ice cream. Think about, you know, what it looks like, what the ice cream itself looks like, and it's kind of just a little like warped thing. If you remember what we did earlier with the reveal the ice cream scoop or whatever, you can essentially do the same thing, and you can use the warp on it. You can overlap things, whatever. And literally, I would just make a copy of this, turn this like white. I'll make it kind of an off gray color for now so we can see it. But we know this is going to go on top to be like the next part of the little ice cream piece there. And you can, you know, adjust it using that bounding box. You even use the warp on that. And then we know that's going to be like a brownish color, so we'll just go ahead and, you know, prepare it for that. And so on. And of course the cherry. I mean, if you look at the cherry, we could go ahead and make a cherry just so I can show you how easy this is done. But we need to, first of all, make that little shadowy part. So this is going to be kind of more of an advanced thing I'm going to show you, but if I select both of these and use the Pathfinder, this part is the minus front, and I had that little piece right there. Whoops. Which is supposed to be like that. And I need another one that's going to be for the actual cherry. And I'll make that a little bit lighter. I can use, if I go to shift click, I can just do that right here. And to put that behind the shadowy thing, I just need to hold down Control and left bracket on my keyboard. And you can kind of see now, there's a slight darker shade there to that. And I can even make it darker if I wanted. If I go back to shift click on the swatches here, and then use the K part here for, you know, black, add more black to the red, and there you go. And then I would just move that over a little bit so it's on the edge. Even make it a little bit more aligned with the rest of the cherry. And then there's these two little white dots. So like literally, boom. We'll make that like a pinkish color. So I'll just take this and do that right there. And then I can go Alt, click. I can even zoom in if I do Control plus a bunch. Make that a little bit smaller. Zoom out. And that's almost exactly the same as that cherry there. Maybe it's slightly off color or whatever. But the point is try out some of these tools, see how you can use these different things to build more complex shapes using those primitive basic shapes in here. And you'll even see there's like this like star shape, and you can do multiple sides to it. You press the up arrow, it gives you more corners. If you press the down arrow, it gives you less corners. Each one of these tools and the shapes has its own kind of qualities to it. And in some cases, when you're working with these, you might even be doing something where you use the left and right arrows. For instance, on the rounded rectangle, if I use the left arrow, it gives me a perfect square. Right arrow makes it as round as it can possibly go. And then if I press the up and down arrow, it changes the radius of the corners, so how curvy they are. And you do that as you're drawing it. Like you literally are using your keyboard as you are clicking and dragging things. So you can kind of place everything within your image on the fly. And then you can use the Pathfinder, if you select multiple things, you can create new shapes using that. Just like this. What I used was that divide, which allows you to kind of divide the overlapping part of a shape. So you can kind of see how this stuff works, experiment a little bit, but the main thing is that I wanted you to accomplish was this and that, and you are all done. All right, have a good day.